What do you see? What do you see? Look at the image just to my side. And what do you see in this image, church family? Would you trust this guy that you see? Probably see a guy there, his face. Would you trust him? Think about it for a minute. As you look at his face, is he a trustworthy guy? Or might he be an LIAR? Hopefully, you can see both the face and the cursive spelling of the word liar. So I don't think you should trust him at all. What do you see? It's such an important question. We talked about this yesterday in worship. We are exploring what change looks like in our lives and how it happens. We've been talking about being forgivable and how to apologize, but apologies, as we've been talking about them, require change in our lives, right? How many of you have experienced an apology, but then somebody goes right back out and does the same thing again, never changing what they do? So, part of being forgivable in our world means learning to change. Well, if you're going to learn to change, you got to understand how change happens. How does change happen? Well, there are tried and true processes for change in our world. Most of the time, we think we see something and we just want to jump to change it right away and do something about it. But there's actually a step by step process to create change in our life that people have been using for decades and decades to create some of the most meaningful and powerful changes around the world. So we're exploring that process over the next few weeks. Yesterday, we talked about the first two steps in change. And the very first one, awareness, is all about asking, what do I see? What do you see? You see, we can't do anything about something that we can't see. Or to say it a different way, as I shared with the congregation yesterday, you can't change what you cannot see. So it's really important to look out in the world and what do you see? Ask yourself, what do I see? And the flip side of that question, of course, is what am I not seeing? And that leads us to step two in the process of change, which is all about gathering information. I call it information gathering. And this step towards change is about asking yourself questions. What do I need to learn? You see, we don't see everything. That's just the truth of the matter. None of us can see everything around us. None of us has the omnipotent perspective that God's has. None of us has those omniscient eyes that can see all things. We are all blind to certain things in the world. And so we have to ask ourselves, what do I need to learn? Given what I see, awareness, step one, what is it that I need to learn more about? Information gathering, step two. We're going to talk about these steps over the next 3 weeks. Next week, we will start to look at what do you do after you've thought about what you see and after you've gathered some information, after you've asked those, what do I see and what do I need to learn questions. We'll look at step 3, 4, and then the following week, steps 5 and 6. I'm not going to give them away now, so you're going to have to stay in tune. But all of this, we're following the story of Saul from Acts chapter 9. And as we spoke about yesterday, Saul on the road to Damascus. Saul is a sort of a bad dude, right? He's been persecuting Christians, killing Christians, turning them into the authorities at Jerusalem. And Saul is very unliked in the Christian community. And so we're going to watch this man have this powerful, transformative change in his life as we lead up to Easter, seeking that kind of change for ourselves even. And so as we set off with Paul and these guys that he's walking with along the road to Damascus, we read in Acts chapter 9, verse 3, that as Paul is going along and approaching Damascus, the scripture says, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him, symbolizing his sight, what he could see and what he couldn't see, this light, this blinding light. And we hear in scripture how Paul literally goes blind and can't see anything from this flashing light. So I love the contrast of this light, which enables us to see, right? But Paul has not been seeing the effects, the outcomes that he's been producing in his life through this persecution that he's been engaging in. And so this light, which is supposed to help us see, ends up blinding him because he can't take in what God is trying to show him through Jesus Christ. And then I love, after we look at that, what can Paul see, or what can Saul see? He's not yet Paul, but what can Saul see and what can't he see? And we sort of play with the light and the blindness there. In verse 5, Paul begins step 2 of the process of change. He asks a question. What do I need to learn? Well, his question is, who are you, Lord? Now, I love this because some of us were talking yesterday after our worship service about this Paul calling out, Lord. Did Paul know it was Jesus? Well, clearly not, because the answer to the question that Jesus gives is, Paul, this is Jesus whom you've been persecuting, in the very next verse, or in second half of verse 5. And so Paul clearly doesn't know that it's Jesus, but he recognizes that whatever is happening is powerful enough that he calls out Lord. Lord was a word that was a common word used in this time for someone who was above you, an authority figure, a master. That's applied to Jesus becomes our way of recognizing the kingship, right? The authority that Jesus has in our lives. And the Bible begins to do that. But at this time, the word Lord is a very common word used. So that Paul cries out Lord is not a signifier that he knows this is Jesus, but rather a signifier that Paul knows that whatever is happening to him is bigger than he can comprehend. It has authority and a power greater than he can understand. And he's gone blind, so he can't see it. He can't know it. This flash of light has overcome him because of what he couldn't see. And so he gets curious. He says, who is this? Lord. He recognizes the power and then asks, who? A question that we perhaps should all ask in our lives a little bit more often. Who is this, Lord? So I encourage you to get out in the world as you are seeking forgiveness, as you're making those apologies, but also just as you're living your life and seeking to mold and conform and transform your life closer to Jesus Christ, to begin with these first 2 steps of change. What do you see? What do you not see? And then asking, okay, what do I need to learn some more about? What perspective am I missing? Where are my blind spots? How have I, like Paul, been blinded because of what I can and can't see? And how is God trying to open my eyes to more around me? The first 2 steps of change. Stay tuned. Come and visit us Sunday at Hood Memorial Christian Church. We'd love to have you. We're going to talk about steps 3 and step 4. If you're new to our church family, we're very welcome in place. We'd love to have you come and join us. If you